our chairman from a People's Power Party actually have a lot of ideas of what our model from housing, from CPF, retirement financing should be. Right? And this will be part of our policy ideas in the key policy ideas that we will put forward in the coming election. So without further ado, right, Derrick.
Before I start, let me show you a slide. And can I have a show of hands? How many of you had used one of these? Wow, I know all of your issues already. So what happened to Nokia? So when Nokia CEO held his last meeting, he actually said this. He said, we didn't do anything wrong, but somehow we lost. So sometimes it's not about we are doing the right thing. Every time you are doing this thing, all along has been like that. But how come Nokia lost? Because there's a change in platform, right? Apple came out, and Nokia is on the Symbian's platform. So no matter how you actually patch out and do, it's a total different things. But we agree that Nokia is a very good phone, and all of us use it, and they actually have a lot of innovative videos, phone, all this. But when Apple comes in, it's totally different platform. It's touch screen, and now everyone is using that. So the next one I want to show is Kodak. I want to talk about Kodak. It's just less than 2 decades ago that we are still there's still the film. Yeah. So one of the issue why I talk about Kodak, because Kodak is a bigger loss. There's this book by Paul Carroll called $Billions Lesson. Why? Because Kodak is even a staggering loss compared to Nokia. They have all the innovation, they have all the experts, they are the top photography company. In 1975, preparing this speech, in 1975, right, one of their top engineer called Steve Sasson actually invented the digital photography. So they have all the IP, all the technology, so they have lots of time to actually make the switch. But in the early 90s, when they held a board meeting and embark on this digital journey or go back to the film. But they make so much mistake. And that's why by 2012, they actually filed for bankruptcy. And that is one of the worst corporate blunder because they have all the resources. And one of the key lesson we can learn from these two corporate lessons is it's not wrong to refuse new things. It's not wrong if you don't want to learn new things. But if your mindset cannot keep up with time, right, you'll be eliminated. And the advantage we have yesterday will be replaced by the trends of tomorrow. So will Singapore becomes like Kodak? Will we have our Kodak moments? Sometimes if you read an overseas article, you read about Temasek Holdings losing billions in certain investment. Then this Kodak moment actually made me think about Singapore. Because a lot of things are opaque, a lot of information are opaque. How much reserve we have, we don't know. This is the thing. If today you forget anything, right, just to remember Kodak, and will Singapore becomes like Kodak? So the next slide I'm going to ask, I will go into CPF. Just now, Dr. Tan, PJ Tan talked about CPF, and it's a very good information because I will be talking about CPF. So in 2019, there's a PQ. PQ is parliamentary question asked to post to our manpower minister. How many percentage of the Singaporean are getting? How much are they getting from the CPF? The PQ answer is there's 74% getting less than 500 a month, and then the rest are getting more than 500. So when the data show and we go down even deeper, the older folks actually get less than 220 every month. So to me, right, this is a big issue because clearly the public scheme is not working. How come we are paying so much into our CPF, but why most of the people are getting so little? Do you think 500 is it enough to have a basic standard of living in Singapore? Yeah, not enough. Yeah, so that's the key thing. So compare through other country pension scheme. So when we compare, we have to compare with the countries similar to us. So I compare to OECD 35. On average, right, the contribution to pension scheme is around 15.4%. Ours is 37%. And what went wrong? How come we are contributing almost 40% of our income, but how come our people are receiving so much lesser? Because in those countries, generally they are taking 1,200 a month, or some are 1,200 every fortnight, which means that 2 weeks they get 1,200. Yeah, so it's around 1,000, but our people are getting 500. So when we talk about CPF, right, we don't talk about housing because it's linked to housing. If we look into CPF scheme as a public scheme, it is a very good scheme. We compare to many pension scheme, right? I think CPF is high up there. But when we actually complicate the matter when we put into housing, because housing actually play a big part. When I do financial review with people, most of the time they spend almost all their OA when they buy their first property. And then after that, left their SA. So the OA become zero. And then over time, they start working back and their OA don't increase by a lot because most of the money will actually go to the housing. So I want to ask all of you this question because Singaporean, right, really like property. Is property an asset or a liability? It's a consumption. Okay? Because when the first property or the property you're staying, you're always consuming. So it's a consumption. When you spend too much into a property, then you're over consuming. And then in our case, we are doing over consumption into property sector in sacrifice of our retirement. So that's a big issue. Yeah. The second property you have, we can term it an asset because you actually can collect rental over time. Actually, you can sell it off. You don't need the property. It's just purely for investment. But the property you're staying, the story painted to us is that property is your asset. While you stay, actually will increase in the price. And next time you can sell for retirement. But actually it complicates. Why do I have to spend a lot more upfront than hoping that in future my house go up even more so that I can sell and then I can retire? Doesn't make a lot of sense, right? So CPF, right, just now I was mentioning, is a very good public scheme. So what are the things that I think we can improve on? I think number one, right, the feedback I get from the through walkabout is MediSave withdrawal limits. A lot of people don't know MediSave withdrawal limits unless you yourself use it or your parent is using it. Okay, so if you are familiar with your MediSave, your CPF rules, right, number one thing is the basic healthcare sum keep on increasing every year, correct? This year to next year, they'll increase 5.6%. 5.6%. So it's around now I think 71 or 75,000. So every year they're increasing, but the amount you can use for your medical treatment is always the same. So you can see that every year they increase. The reason given is that because of to keep up with medical inflation. So we have to increase. Fair enough. That's your medical surgical table 1A to 7C. So what does it mean? So every medical condition or surgical table, for every surgical procedure, let's say it's a very simple procedure, it will be under table 1A or to 1C. So out of your MediSave, even if you have 75,000, for that procedure, you only can use 250 to 450. That's the max. The rest, you have to use your medical insurance or you come up cash out of your pocket. So the most complicated surgery, maybe an open heart surgery, will be classified under the table 7A to 7C. So the highest limit is what? 7,500. If I'm not wrong, right, I don't think they review it because I'm in the industry for the past 15 years and it has been always about 7,000 plus. Yeah. So you can see that there's an incongruence in policy. While every year, the basic healthcare sum keeps increasing, but the withdrawal limit is the same for donkey years already. Many years. Second thing is for your cancer treatment. Cancer outpatient treatment is 600 per year for your MRI scan. Do you think it's enough? 600 per year. At first, I thought it's 600 per month. No? Then I go and double check. I say, how come 600 per year? They make $50 a month only, no? The other one is your flexi benefit. Flexi benefit first came out in 2015. So it has been 300 ever since. I mean, you can use 300 for some of the chronic illness, taking medicine is 300 per year, not per month, per year. Yeah, so these are the things which I think that we can improve on, which is to increase the MediSave withdrawal limits. Second thing, just now in earlier slide, I say that the lump sum withdrawal of 5,000, if you do not hit the full retirement sum, when you reach 55, CPF allow you to actually withdraw some money. But this 5,000 has been around for many years, I think 20 over years. In the 80s, right, it was 10,000. So people who didn't hit their minimum sum way back, now it's called full retirement sum, you can actually withdraw 10,000 way back. And then somehow they reduce to 5,000. We can improve, we should actually improve it to maybe peg to inflation or every year go up. Well, same for the MediSave withdrawal limits. In the past, in the 80s and 90s, right, so they allow us to use the CPF, and that actually increased the liquidity and housing price keep going up. So then that a lot of people also make money through property. But we need to talk about this housing issue with CPF urgently, because in the next 2 decades, many HDB will be in their 60th and 70th year. And that's the issue, because as the property lease get decay, get lesser and lesser, what happened? Right now, the market is irrational. There's houses that is about 35 years or 40 years. They are selling at 600,000, 550,000, despite their lease is like living about 60 or 55 years. If we keep going downward, remember I say houses, the property, the HDB we stay is consumption. So by right, it should go down, not go up, keep going up, keep going up. So if it keep going up, it means you are always looking for the next person to pay a premium so that you can retire. But it can't keep on increasing, because eventually you have to diminish. Currently, there's this lease buyback. So it's like if I want to retire, I can sell the remaining lease back to the government. Most of the money will park into CPF, and then they get every month some money. But if your house left around 30 years, how are you going to do a lease buyback? As our nation age, right, this is a problem which no one is bringing up. And we don't talk about this, because the time is short. A lot of houses are going to age much older, like those in Tanglin Hawk, in Queenstown, in Circuit Road. A lot are in the 70s. So right now they are in their 50th year. Yeah. So, and then we also understand that CPF, right, what is the percentage of the people hitting the full retirement sum? With property, only 66% hit the full retirement sum. So just now, Dr. Tam talked about Singapore being asset-rich, cash flow is correct. Because even with property, only 66% of the people hit the full retirement sum. So when asked about what is the member who made the full retirement sum entirely from CPF saving, with excluding the property, the figure is not given out. So for us, we actually propose many ways. But the key thing is we should be talking about this topic, exploring, and then we suggest idea. But right now, the government is not talking about this. So that's the key thing we need to start with doing. Well, some of the ideas that I propose is having a lease decay guide. This is the most balanced, giving more information to buyers, so buyers understand that they are going to buy a resale flat, but with shorter lease. So they will not actually come out with higher prices, bring rational back to the market. Yeah. So, but the lease decay guide has to be published by the SLA, because we do not know what is the value of the land for the older flats. But we know that for newer flats, recently, Desmond Lee actually talked about our HDB land cost is about 60%. So if you buy a 500,000, the land cost for the flat is about 300,000, 60%. Yeah. Okay. So the other thing is we also suggest about decoupling CPF with the HDB. So again, just now I mentioned, by alone, CPF is a good scheme. But if you tie it with housing, then people will overspend on housing. So, but decoupling comes with other issues. So we have to actually talk about it. But this is one of the options. And the other option is to putting more disposable income back to our CPF member. Right now, I think too much is locked into the CPF, almost 40%. So if we reduced to 20%, which means that 17% come from employer. I mean, your boss actually pay the 17%. And then from your pay, you actually deduct 3% only instead of the current 20%. So 20% go to the CPF only for retirement. So you have more disposable income on hand, then you can make more prudent decision whether to buy, to offer the price for the housing. Yeah. Another one is the Family Kickstart Program. The Family Kickstart Program is something that we actually say that houses should not be built to order. Rather, we should actually build in advance. Like in the past, it's walk-in. All the houses are walk-in. So, and the houses are sold to young families without the land cost. So it's sell at cost. And they have a very low cost, cheap housing, only 2-room flat. And if they actually have babies, then we incentivize them to upgrade to the bigger house. But the key thing to tackle total fertility rate is to make sure that our young graduates, when they fall in love in their 20s, they get married. We want them to get married in their 20s. So they have their son, they don't have anxiety issue over the expensive housing property. This is what I see happening on the ground. A lot of things are actually come from the property because high property price actually lead to financial issue and anxiety and mental health. There's increasing mental health issue. And when you talk to young couples, some are making good income, like 10,000, the other one 10,000. So household income about 20,000. They are having good income, but they are still anxious about not enough. They are anxious about retrenchment. What if they have no job? And financial issue is one of the top 5 reasons couple actually divorce. And when they divorce, then there will be dysfunctional issue, mental health issue, all this all come together. And that's the reason why I bring about Kodak and Nokia. So we have to start discussing the issue, look into the problem. Are they thinking that is there a problem in the first place? Because I think a lot of parties, a lot of members of public also bring about this issue of the housing. But Desmond Lee, our MND, is saying that the house he maintained that our house are affordable. I think as voters, we also need to have a mindset shift, the paradigm shift. Because opposition, we are doing as much as we can. We are going to walk about. This day, we are doing podcasts. We are reaching out to all of you. And now, this public policy, we are reaching out to all of you. It's no longer in the past, like in the past 10 years or 20 years. We can always say, I don't know who is my opposition. Opposition, cannot make it. Yeah, because right now we are making a lot of effort. All the opposition are making a lot of effort. On the ground, we are suggesting alternative policy for you to read up and for you to view our podcast. So I hope there will be a paradigm shift.